Herndon, or Hendon, is Hendon?
Yeah, Herndon.
It's my understanding that him and Joe, Driscoll, the town's attorney, will both be here in person.
In person, okay.
Yes.
How,
How,
We'll make everybody talk fast.
oh,
Yeah.
yeah,
Or them, I
say
said.
that again?
I thought I would want to tie.
Oh,
See if they don't, they have room. around the
I came out there and see if I can turn them.
well, let me turn this thing off. I don't know what I've forgotten, but probably something. It's bad to have a meeting right after a long weekend.
Yes, it is, I was thinking that myself. Yeah. To try and collect your thoughts when you don't feel
Right.
like it. Okay, we are expecting Ben.
Mhm.
I suppose we could start without him. I hate to do that.
Well, you can always do public comment. There's no public on here, so.
No, they're all here, it's great, I
Mhm.
like that.
Yeah.
10 o'clock.
Yeah, that's it, coming back, coming out of the long weekend.
Yeah, that's reality.
Yesterday, everybody was like, could it just be one more day?
Yeah, my son was complaining about that, he said, it's really great to have these long weekends, but it's really hard that first day back at work.
Although my daughter, who's a teacher, said she actually really enjoyed the 3-day week
Yes,
in school, a 3-day holiday, and then a 4-day week, and then a 5-day
Yeah, yeah,
week
it's like a soft
to get the
entry.
students back into the harness.
yeah,
And
All
Yes.
intentional, by
They
the way.
worked on
is that, and that, you second that? Okay, so my daughter's a smart person, yeah, I guess I knew that.
yeah, my daughter also,
Uh-huh.
takes a while to get the kidlets brains back in here,
Yeah.
yeah. Okay, well, it's 9:02, I am gonna open the meeting, and we can start with some public comments, unless I hear objections from folks, and we can wait for Ben, I'm sure he's on his way. And I'm guessing that all of our public that's sitting here is probably waiting for the
Good
10
note.
o'clock discussion.
Yeah.
But,
I got a few things.
okay, Sue, you have the
I've been
floor.
saving them up.
Okay, good.
But we gonna have to see some roadside mowing.
This I don't know, but you know what, I've been thinking about it.
I would request that it be done in early August. There's not much vegetative growth after the 1st of August. So if
So-
the mowing gets done earlier,
I think
And it
this year
doesn't-
it was supposed to get done, but I think we got hung up with the Goose Pond Road project because of the rain.
Right.
But
They are
we
gonna
will-
go around and do some intersections and stuff, but I
That would be
don't
good.
know that they'll be getting to all.
That's a good suggestion, that for next year to get that
get it done
clearly on the docket.
early.
Yeah,
Mowers are more available then as well.
okay,
Scott has asked me to put that out to bid already, so.
Oh,
he's
good.
on the ball.
very good.
One place I really notice is the corner of North Thetford and River Road.
Oh,
Um,
okay,
Yeah, it makes if you turn north onto the River Road from North Thetford, the road seems especially narrow because all the vegetation coming.
Is into the travel lane.
Yeah.
yeah, is it, okay, I
That's
know
just the one
I
spot
actually
I
took my
noticed.
mower, but it's not an intersection, it's just my driveway, I couldn't see anymore either direction.
Yeah.
I do appreciate the fact that they trimmed the brush around the Grand Brook Bridge, so that's more visible now.
Yeah.
That's a bad intersection.
Yeah, okay,
Is the Goose Pond Road project complete now?
I think it still needs a last
Just-
course of paving.
Maybe, yep,
And that is scheduled to be mid to late September. Again, due to the rains. But I think it's ready to go with paving.
yes it is.
What project do you have in mind for 2024?
I don't have one, do you have one?
Yeah, South River Road.
Ah,
I think Scott has one, so when you.
we
hear
haven't
from-
talked to Scott yet, but, okay, so, South River Road. I was thinking it would be great to have a year where we didn't have one. I noticed that Lyme's red listed bridges, at least one is on the next 10-year plan. It was in this morning's paper. They're
Where's
gonna
that?
be, DOT is gonna be meeting in Lebanon.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, and they're gonna be talking about red listed bridges, and they listed Lyme
Did you
again.
say which one?
They did not, of course, that'd be way too easy.
You've stolen my topic.
I'll look
Oh,
at it.
I was gonna ask, which bridge is red listed?
Oh, well, I think we have a
Several of
couple.
them. Several of them.
We
Oh,
have
okay.
5,
Oh, do we?
I believe.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but, 4 out of the 5 are red listed just because of the wind.
Which one's the red listed
There's
red?
High Bridge.
Morning, Dan.
Sue, help me out, you know,
High
High
Bridge,
Bridge, Orford Fell
Pinnacle.
Road, Pinnacle,
Flint Hill,
Flint Hill,
Flint Hill, yeah, that's 3,
Edgeo Bridge,
4.
and,
Well, we were talking
Anyways, that
about
was it.
Edgeo Bridge, at our last meeting, so
Yeah.
we're
It's on
trying.
this agenda too,
Okay.
so I'll wait for that, but, the 5th bridge.
I think it was Hughes, but not any longer.
No, he was grant, recently repaired, so.
Right.
Okay. Who else do you have? The Edgeo Bridge, we can't give you an answer on, but we've been talking about it and getting some, assessments. We know there've been assessments done before, we have the state assessments and, so we're trying to get some realistic information.
but it's probably the most critical one because
Mm-hmm.
it could go.
Well, yeah, there's one thing that I go through that bridge at least once a week, and there's the northwest end of the bridge seems to always have a puddle of water on it, and that can't be good for the wood.
You know, there's some rot on one end,
Yeah,
going down there with the contractor and the state engineer. And the biggest thing is that those piers out there are supposed to stabilize it. And if you look at them, one of them is complete tension and another is slack. And the whole bridge is trying to lean.
Hmm.
maybe I'll choose another route,
Well, the bridge,
The bridge is
the
better.
bed itself is sound. That rot on the end is not a major, that's not the biggest problem.
No.
But that would be fixed if the bridge were fixed.
yeah,
But the bridge should be structurally a covered bridge, and it's not, because the last times that they tried to, that they worked on it, they kind of sent a carpenter in instead of a covered bridge builder. And it wasn't done
correctly.
correctly.
It's been, how many years maybe?
It's been a long time, it's been neglected.
Yeah, so that might be an answer to your earlier question, but
So that, I didn't hear the question, but that's,
the question
that's my
was,
answer.
what's our project for next year?
Well, I think that should be high on our list, because and it'll be expensive, but it's also one that, people could rally around and raise some money for.
Yeah, and right now
Because it
it's,
is
of course,
iconic.
carrying extra traffic, I think, because of the closed
Yeah.
bridge,
Yeah.
which is unfortunate.
And it doesn't need to, because the other route is better than.
Yeah, Route 10 is by far a better way to go.
You know,
So,
it's almost been a half year on the other bridge, that'll be done before we blink our eyeballs 2 more times.
Yeah,
I don't know, is it on, any reports on that bridge, the Thetford Bridge, whether
Yeah.
it's on time or? on
They are
schedule?
moving well, it looks really good.
Yep.
And the way, what I always say is, when you get our age, time goes real fast.
Yes,
And You can also, I think on our webpage, we keep posting the updates that they send out.
Mhm.
So you can go right there and get on their website and they have an updated report, like every couple of weeks or every week.
Some people still haven't gotten the message. I'm seeing some interesting truck traffic come by my house. It obviously went down to the bridge and it's like, oops.
Oh
Well,
dear.
have you noticed the signs, the detour signs?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
if you were not familiar with
They,
what
I
was
still can't
happening,
figure them out.
you would have no
They're very
idea.
confusing.
Yeah. In Hanover, they tell you the detour is like 15 miles north, and that's sort of not helpful.
Well, the way to detour is through West Lebanon, nothing behind, because,
Oh,
Yeah.
Ledger Bridge.
yeah, Hanover's,
Hanover now.
that's a quagmire.
Oh,
That's terrible. So, what else do you have?
that's it.
Wow, okay.
That's not enough? You want more?
No, that's good. Yes, sir.
Dina, can I ask you where those updates are? When you type in bridge, you just get the original letter from the state, which was the 2021.
I will have to ask Jordan,
Oh, I can ask you.
yeah.
Well,
And then she'll
maybe
point you to
if
it.
she's listening,
She is listening
she
and I'm sure
she
she
can
will.
let us know, and then
I'm
we can say
sure.
it, so maybe.
Thank you, Jordan.
Okay,
I did have another one. Is the town assessment old versus new report available yet?
no,
Not yet.
okay.
Okay. Any idea when?
When Dina gets back from vacation.
I was gone Thursday and Friday, so as soon as, and Jordan's been reviewing everything,
Yes,
so
okay,
as soon as we
soonish.
touch base, yeah.
Okay, great, thank you.
Yeah,
And welcome back from vacation.
yeah, thank you.
But, we got a report from the Department of Safety, Division of Motor Vehicles from the state of New Hampshire with an official audit report performed on August 28th in terms of the municipal registration agent. This is very official.
Mhm.
Anyway, flying colors to our town clerk and deputies for their motor vehicle processing. Handling of funds, talking to people, being helpful. We should probably post that, I suppose,
Yeah, you should.
if anyone is interested. It's interesting reading.
You can go on the webpage.
Yeah, let's do that. You don't get,
Our,
yeah,
audit goes in the town report every year, that could go in the town report.
yeah,
Mhm.
that could, that's good. There are a few old timers who are no longer with us who would have loved to see stuff like that in the town report. And in just a couple minutes here, we will be, at 9:15, we will be having a public hearing, just so as you know. But while we wait, let's move on to the approval of the August 24th public and non-public session minutes. I believe it's public session minutes from August 24th. What do we wish,
That was just a copy of this.
oh yeah, there's the non-public. Good morning.
I apologize, usually Tina sends these out in advance and I review them, I didn't see them this week.
They went out before I left.
So I haven't had a chance to look.
Okay, so do you wanna wait till next time?
You know,
You feel good? Okay. Yeah, Dina had everything hooked right out. Next meeting for 8. And we just turned to 9:15, so I will open the public hearing to review and accept unanticipated revenue in accordance with RSA 31:95B, additional block grant funds in the amount of $82,534.88. What do we wish to do with this?
Well, the public must have some
Well,
objections.
I think we should open it, or we should move it, and then we should discuss it.
Yeah, move it, second it, and then discuss
I'll
it.
move. All right,
All right, Ben, thank you.
I'll second.
All right, David moved, Ben second. Now, public, do we have any objections or support?
Is that additional in
I believe
terms,
it
so
is.
it's a second payment?
This is additional to, right, the 2023, they go June to July, so their allocations at the end of '22, this is a total additional amount on top of the 90, whatever it was we ended
96,
up with.
92,
Yeah.
something like that,
Yep,
yeah. Nice.
yeah,
If you need more input from the public, I think we should take it.
Okay, that's perfect, that's what I was waiting to hear. Okay, it's been moved and seconded, and apparently the public thinks it's nice, and we should take it.
Ben, I.
David,
Judy, aye. That is approved, we will gladly accept those funds. Thank you. Okay. Moving right along, so our next, discussion that most folks are here for will be at 10 a.m. this morning. How about we review and hopefully approve the manifest in the amount of $67,215.35. Oh, I suppose we should close the public hearing.
oh, yes.
At 9:17. Now we'll move to the manifest.
I'll move it.
Tina, what is Innovative Surface Solutions?
Thank you, Ben. I'll
It's our
second
mag
it.
chloride, it's where he
Oh,
is for the road.
it's, yeah, okay. ProMag, that's what that is, it's magnesium
Yes.
chloride. So we're stocking up for winter.
Well, he's gonna use it on Goose Pond Road before they pave it, but yes.
Oh,
Because it kind of seals up, holds it all down,
interesting, okay.
and this winter.
Okay. So, Ben moved, I seconded, we have a question. All those in favor of approving the manifest, say aye.
Ben, I.
David, I.
Judy, aye. Manifest is approved.
Dina, do you know what kind of work they're doing on the cemetery stone repair? It was kind of a big item, I'm just curious what they do.
Each year, this same company comes in and does an allotted amount of stones, cleaning, just making sure they're not covered with moss, that kind of stuff for the older ones.
Do they write
So
them
it's
up?
pretty regular each year.
Do they do some movement to write them up if they've started to lean or not?
If something's fallen over, yeah, he would help with that, or leaning. Then they have another company that comes in and kind of does some repair work here and there.
Excellent. Dina, can you tell us, thank you, about the costs, the finances for an additional holiday?
Right, so your additional holiday, your wages are a little over $3,000, $3,019 to be exact. That does not include, you know, if you wanna add benefits and all that to it, but
Yeah,
just the wage amount is that.
for the employees that we have.
For the employees that would qualify for holiday, because they all don't.
That's true. So last meeting, Ben felt that we should add this to our list of holidays. This is the federal holiday that is Juneteenth. And we had some discussion and we asked Dina to come up with what the additional cost would be. And so, what should we do?
ambivalent about this one, I gotta say, but.
Okay.
But,
I
you know,
will
if I had my way, I'd revote some of the other ones that we have.
You said that last time, I will second this just for discussion purposes. What are your thoughts, David?
It just seems funny, it seems like a holiday that is targeted toward a particular racial group, and
I think it is.
I feel odd about that, I gotta say, I
Well,
kind of feel like we should be not,
It's a group that was badly maligned over our history, so,
sure, but there's been lots of groups like that, and
not like that.
one could, reasonable people could disagree about who wins the victim lottery, but, I don't know, it just seems odd to me, but I guess, you know, it is a federal holiday, so maybe that's.
Well, we have one for Columbus, and he probably didn't even discover America. And he was a bad guy.
Seems kind of sad that we couldn't swap them, you know, but that may happen someday. Does anyone sitting here have a comment or a thought?
What would be the date?
I think it's June 16th
That was nice.
19th.
or 19th, is it the 19th?
Yeah, June 2.
But is it,
Right.
19th.
is it the Monday that comes near?
I think this year it was the actual date,
Mhm.
so whenever that,
I think it's just whenever the 19th falls.
Okay.
So, you know, if
So
it
you
falls.
get it if it's on a weekday, and you don't get it if it's
Right.
not a
Well,
holiday, if it falls
Probably
on a
the Monday.
Saturday.
No, with federal holidays, they generally, if it falls on a Saturday, it'll be the Friday. If it falls on a Sunday, it'll be the
You
Monday.
get adjacent
For the
weekend.
federal ones, that's right.
Hmm.
so,
Interesting.
I'm all for giving another day off.
that's kind of where I come from. is
How many does that add up to? 10, 12?
I'd have to look to make
I'd
sure.
have to look too.
It's
Mine-
11.
11 or
It's
12.
another week and a half vacation, it's a lot. I agree, it's a holiday that's well-deserved,
Yeah, well, we
but I
could,
just, you know,
You also agree that we should review all of
Well,
them.
you guys
Yeah.
can
Pick ones we
review
want.
all of them.
substitute.
we can review them.
Yeah.
Hold on. New Year's Day, Martin Luther King's birthday, President's Day, Memorial Day, Independence Day, Labor Day, Columbus Day, Veterans Day, Thanksgiving Day, and Christmas Day. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That would make 11. And the town usually closes either the day before or the day after Thanksgiving, and the same thing with Christmas, but it isn't a paid day. People take it as a vacation day or a personal day.
If they want, right?
They're not required to. So this would make 11. One a month. Yes, sir.
Does each town get to choose
My
what
understanding,
federal holiday you want to recognize with your town employees?
It's a benefit, yeah.
as a benefit, I guess,
Yes, each town can have their own personnel policy written as they so choose. I think it's the practice of most to have federal holidays.
So Ben
Otherwise-
could get his cake and eat it too,
Sure.
because you could swap out Columbus
we
Day.
could
for
swap
June.
out Columbus Day. We could not have that. And in fact, a lot of businesses, I would say over the last 5 or more years, don't take Columbus Day anymore.
I'm not in favor of penalizing town employees for that reason, but
Yeah,
I just
Yeah.
wondered whether, what leeway a town had.
we have some. I think you, well, the banks are closed, the post office is closed, most businesses are on most of those holidays that I read. I think Columbus Day's the one. Yes,
It does seem like, to David's point, most of the other holidays are focused on the white Christian majority, so I feel no compunction about having a June vacation to commemorate the torture that, I think it's 20% of our population.
Commemorating the liberation of
Yes,
Right.
of the
exactly.
peoples.
The liberation from the torture.
Interestingly, my daughter's now working up in Vermont, and that school takes the Jewish holidays off.
Yep.
And I would be so surprised if there are any Jewish people up there. Maybe passing through.
Crossroads does.
Do they?
They take Hanukkah
Yeah,
and Christmas. Yeah.
that's great, I like that.
I mean, one day for Hanukkah, not the whole,
Not the whole week.
not the whole week.
I went to a business school in Boston, and there were a lot of Jewish folks there, and they closed for the week.
Hmm.
And boy, I'll tell you what, you never saw girls get so excited. They went shopping. There was no religious observance, but they hit the stores big time every day. So, I think we should vote. Having had this nice chat, those in favor of adding Juneteenth as a holiday to our schedule, say aye.
Ben, I,
David, I.
Judy, aye. Okay, we'll see how it works. Do you wanna take Columbus Day out while we're here? Okay. And thank you all for your comments, I appreciate it. And Dina, thank you for giving us the cost summary.
You're welcome.
Okay. We have, well, let's move right on to the Edgell Bridge news, if we have some. No?
I don't really have anything additional, until we get some
Written,
numbers back, other than,
what we had last time,
right, what you had the last time.
which
And
is,
then a reminder that we have that $69,000. That was the additional bridge money the state gave at the end of last year also.
so 69,000 plus the quote was around 500 and almost 6.
690,000.
Okay, so 7.
Right around. That's what his was.
So we have a way to go before we hit that number.
Well, you have your capital reserve fund that has a chunk of money in there, but even if you add that to it, you don't have enough in your capital reserve fund, and you certainly don't wanna drain it. I
No.
have it right here.
Yeah.
I wrote it on the other stuff from last week, but
I know, I
I didn't bring that in with me.
I didn't either, so,
So right now, the bridge fund
is,
has 411,197.
okay. So, say,
Oh, plus you're putting 50 in this year, I
I think you said that last time, yep. So 70 plus 50 is 120, so you're up to 600 and change. And we just got,
So that'll have to be, if it ends up, you guys decide to do that bridge.
yeah, we'll have to
And you'll have to have a
warrant article for extra funds.
Right.
Okay,
Dina, could you say the ballpark number that the bridge would cost?
690,000.
$690.
Well,
Yeah, that was the ballpark for,
we've got a tentative
right.
estimate of cost, but
has gone out for bid.
it hasn't gone
Yeah,
out for bid,
no,
and
no,
we
this
don't
is,
really know.
this is just.
I worry a little bit about that number, because I worry that we could, when we actually do it in a formal way, that the real number could end up being materially higher or lower.
It could be, you're
Right,
correct.
I'm completely content, but to say it's 690, it's not 250, and it's not 3 million. So,
We think.
We don't think-
right, no, right, exactly, but, yeah, it's not gonna be a whole lot cheaper. Well, I know that, okay.
okay.
And we have nothing to gain by putting it off, and a lot to lose.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I'm a little worried that when we go out to bid in a serious way, we may get bids that are 7 figures.
Well, I don't think that's gonna be the case, because the construction is well-known and relatively normal. It's not like putting a concrete bridge in there.
Could be.
well, we'll see, you know, materials keep going up and up and up.
Even so, it's wood construction, it will be wood construction when it gets done.
Oh, that'd be nice, I'd love to see, I think everyone would love to see that.
Well, and I am, still looking into the historical bridge people. They just haven't gotten back to me yet, so
So there might be more
as soon
grant
as.
money available to assist with
There
this.
could be, correct.
Is there a prohibition against using manufactured wood for that? Like we did on the Grand Fork Bridge, Newsbrook Bridge, in River Road? because that wood is much more durable and lasting.
Yeah, I don't, usually the historic regulations are pretty limiting, but that's a good question, we could certainly ask that.
They're not really subject to, because it has a roof over it, they're not subject to rot or, you know, I'm sure on the parts that are exposed to weather, they will do something that addresses those concerns, but.
What's the roof? Is it shale, shingle,
Yeah, but
wood slates?
it was kind of just put up there by a carpenter, believe me.
Yeah.
So
It
should it
wasn't
be
put up by a
shaped?
pre-built. The thing is supposed to be self-standing structure, with all the X's and braces and everything within it. It's not supposed to, and the roof is part of it, and the roof is just put on there like a shed roof. It's not helping the structure.
Do we know a date on that bridge?
The original date,
Yeah.
This Lee doesn't.
This we doesn't either.
before I was born.
Historians know.
Before I
That
was
old?
born.
Oh my
Ooh,
God.
that old?
Watch it,
It
Dina,
was
you'll
built
get
on
there
the common
someday.
though, right?
I have to get my digs anytime I can with him, because he's always doing it to me.
Yeah. Okay,
Yeah, I don't know, I can find out. I did know, because we had that big hoopla about it there.
a few years back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
All right, I think that brings us up to the non-exciting stuff, budget discussion. I should say it's exciting, but it isn't for me. I threw out to Dina to run some numbers based on a possible 3% wage increase. The best I could come up with of the last 2 months was the CPI, the New England CPI, and COLA fluctuating right around that number. Might be 2 something, might be 3 something. So Dina obliged, and of course I can't find that piece of paper. Looks like, we would be, oh Dina, 41,037, so 42,000 over this year's, thank you Dina, costs. Yes, ma'am?
1885. 1885.
1885.
1885.
Yep.
Guess that was before you were born.
Just barely.
It cost $1,800.
I know. Some of the repair reports they have are pretty amazing to look at too.
And what's interesting is when you look at the New England CPI, there's a big split between large cities
Yeah,
and smaller towns, with large cities being 3.2 and the smaller towns being under 2%.
Right.
really,
Yeah,
Under
2.9
2.
right now.
really?
Just turned your flashlight on.
I'll have to, yeah.
I need all
should look
the
that up.
illumination I can get.
So under 2% and over 3% depending on your population size. So this is how you can tell I'm not an economist. It doesn't make sense to me because the food costs are the same. Gas is probably more expensive in a small town because it has to get transported there. Rent, heating, oh, yeah. That's housing costs you think would be less.
Maybe, I don't, I haven't,
Of
I'm
course
just
it's-
looking at
We live in a bubble.
the summary chart.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, at 2%, I don't know what the difference would be
You
there, but
take a third off that.
Wage,
Yeah.
Right.
right. Somewhere, so it would be 30, 25, 30.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And it's for the Northeast, so they
Yeah.
include New York and Boston in those
Oh, that's
figures.
helpful.
So,
Yeah.
and those are driving a lot of the higher numbers, I think.
Did you come up with a COLA number? Usually they're similar but not the same.
Yeah, they can be off though quite a bit, but usually if you spread them out over a 5-year period, they end up at the end
Being about the same.
about the same, correct?
So many years ago, we only used the COLA, and then we seemed to be starting to use the CPI. And now, maybe 2 weeks ago, on one public radio station, I can't remember which one, they had a long piece on the feds starting to use a different factor. And again, I don't recall what it was, but they were taking some things out of the CPI, so they were getting a different number.
Yeah, I heard that, but
Did you? Can you remember what it was?
no,
I think if one was food, maybe. I don't know.
I'd have to hear that story 3 times before I got it thoroughly.
It was kind of complicated, wasn't it? At least I thought it was. So, it is early, but we need to be thinking about, that's kind of a starting point.
So when I look for COLA online, it's only a national number, there's no
Right.
regionality to it, and it looks like it's 8.7%.
That was
That was last year. Right
For
here it says-
2023.
How much will my social security payment be with the 2024 COLA increase?
Oh, yeah.
Social security payment, 3%.
Okay,
I'm sorry, I was looking at.
That's okay.
yeah, so that's for 2024,
Right.
3% for COLA.
That's an estimate, right?
And mostly we end up getting it end of September is when we usually grab onto a number. Budget hearings will start, budget meetings will start in earnest in October, but we have one coming up shortly. The
You have the organizational one,
organizational
Mhm.
one.
and then the department starts coming in
Yeah.
October.
So what's our sense? It's not, nothing is finalized yet, but we'll need to start building budgets.
Mhm.
Anybody? Sue, any thoughts? James?
What was the total cost?
41, at 3%, just for wages and benefits, personnel costs, $41,037.
It seems to be an opportunity to be slightly generous and supportive of our employees that we have trained and like, and that nickeling and diming them about cost of living when it's been 8% last year, and they certainly didn't get it then.
Yes, we
did.
did.
They did get
We
8%.
did, yes.
Well, still, I have a sense that people are generally falling a little bit behind, and I think the difference between 40,000 and 28,000, you know, if you did 2% instead, is not useful to the town.
Yeah, a multi-million-dollar budget.
Exactly.
Okay, I appreciate that. Ben, David, use the 3% and continue on?
We should see where the COLA lands, because right now it's just projections, I think, and maybe use 3% for right now and sort of keep an open mind about it,
Mhm.
Okay,
I
and,
think.
and I think in 2 weeks' time,
Yeah, when do we need to finalize?
well, we don't need to finalize it till mid-October, but in a couple of weeks' time, I think we've got some department head information coming into us, and we can start seeing if there are expenses that we aren't anticipating, and of course, we know, like with heating fuel and gasoline for the road crew and their materials, they always go up, so
Yeah, it seems like this year was a tough year for the road crew with all the rain and such.
rain was just,
So we may have some unpleasant surprises.
and I'm glad Scott is reaching out to people to see about the roadside mowing, because that's been on my mind as well.
Do we have a full road crew? I'm hearing all kinds of
Yeah.
stories.
We do,
Excellent.
yep,
Yay, we do now.
yep.
Dina's website caught the last one, which is pretty amazing.
It was very exciting to hear that he went on and saw it on the webpage.
Mhm.
Excellent.
Yeah.
First
that's
time
great.
ever.
That's after almost a year of advertising.
Yeah,
Yep.
we really
It's
had a
still-
great
it's still
crew
up.
there for a couple of years. Is it
It still
still up?
says
That's
you're
okay.
hiring.
That's all right. Having one in the wings isn't a
So
bad
when
idea.
might come along, you never know, and wanna plow or something, you know?
A winter hire,
Mhm,
boy, those were the old days.
mhm.
So I don't think we have anything that I know of right now. If we can get a carpenter, we'd still like to make some of those structural changes in the select board office
We're
to
still waiting for that.
heighten security in there, a little
Right.
enclosure when you walk in so that people don't have free reign.
And I was wondering if you wanted to pick a couple of meetings for, or decide what you're gonna do for actual budget discussions, whether you're gonna make them part of your regular meeting, or whether you're gonna just apply one meeting to
Yeah,
hardcore budget stuff, and then,
yeah, move along. Well,
right,
we had said we were gonna start work on this early, so we've got our first jump in. And I think I'm game either way, but I really don't wanna be waiting till mid-October to be finalizing. I know the departments are gonna start going to the budget committee, and I would like to have discussions with them before they head out so that we can start looking at warrant articles and numbers, so. Ben and David, how do you feel? Do you wanna, what I'm trying to come up with is, so, October 11th, I believe, is the first
Mhm.
budget meeting with department heads, and it will be,
it'll be highway,
The-
police, emergency
then it
services.
will be the 18th, and then it will be the 25th, so 3 Wednesdays in a row, department heads meet with the budget committee.
You prefer that we meet on this stuff before any of those things happen?
I would like us to have an idea of what's happening. We will not make a final decision about it, I think, until after they've been to the budget committee.
Right, you don't
But
have
I
to
would
present your budget.
prefer that we know and begin to build on things that certainly we support and our departments feel they need.
Well, especially if you already know there's certain things like that other, office stuff that you wanted to add in.
Right.
And you can also kind of come up with an idea of,
Where we are.
let's try not to go over a certain percentage and, stuff like that.
So do you wanna do it each meeting, or do you wanna earmark a meeting for it?
Defer to you, you're the one who gets the deepest into this one. Really, you should just pick what's gonna be easiest for you,
Yeah,
and Ben and I think, can accommodate whatever you prefer.
okay. Well,
The only thing I'd say is that I'm gonna be out of town the week of October 9th, so.
okay. And that's not a board meeting scheduled for that week, so. Okay, well, let me take a few days to look at my calendar, and I think maybe if we can get information from the department heads, maybe the 5th of October would be a good day to just dedicate the meeting to working it up. 'Cause I
And that
know
gives them enough time too.
that
to
should give
work
them
on it.
time, because
Yep.
they're going to be having to go to the budget committee, and that would be good, so.
Well, it might be actually nice for them, because then it gives them a little preview of what questions you
Questions.
guys might have. So,
Right, okay. So that looks like that's tentative right there, 10-5, and just a good time if anyone has anything they wanna suggest. We've got a few minutes that we're not rushing. Yes, sir.
I was at a social gathering, and some people were asking if Cam's around. They hadn't seen him.
No, he's not. He's back up in what town?
I think he's in,
He's working for the town
Bath.
of Bath Police Department now,
Oh,
So Sean is solo.
correct?
oh,
Thank you.
and you will see Sean in different vehicles, so pay attention.
I'm waiting to see him in the EV police car.
We've been looking for police officers for a long time,
Yes,
and we're still looking. So maybe if the highway guy shows up, we'll put him in uniform.
Right,
and And as we said last week, and school has started, I bet you guys have seen the radar signs.
Yeah, thank you for getting those done, yeah.
Yep,
Well,
yep.
Sean and Matt, Sean ordered them, and he got,
They're working good.
they work great, they're
That's
nice
right.
size.
It's like, wait, I'm going that fast?
I think they're
Yes.
really
Oh, dear.
helpful. I think they're really
Yeah,
helpful.
they are, and has it helped with the, are you still doing crossing?
Well, I just had first week last week, very exciting. It was pretty rainy. It was kinda crazy the first day, actually, cause
I bet
of the
it was.
rain and lots of, it's, the kids know to use the crosswalk, but the adults all just like drag their kids up across the middle of the road.
Long across.
That's right.
You're a crossing guard too,
I
right?
am, and Thursday was glorious and sunny.
Oh, so you lucked out.
I did. It's okay. It gets cold for everybody in January.
Could you get DOT to move the bridge sign that's blocking the electronic sign on the north end?
Oh.
Is it on the north end? Well, when you're coming up, yeah,
Coming
you don't
south.
see it until
Come in
the
and you don't
last
see
minute,
it,
yeah.
because you have to look between the signs, there's a whole bunch of them right there, and the bridge
We could
detour, it makes no
try
sense.
to get- Maybe we could just move it.
This one up here, the
Yes,
north end?
this one up here.
We've had a discussion about flashing crosswalk, which was we had the money from the Lyme Foundation, and then a neighbor complained about it.
Mhm.
The neighbor had a child with a health issue, well, the child is no longer there, so that issue shouldn't be there either. But those work very well, and now people know what they're nobody knew what we were talking about. It was an FRP or something like that. Now you can't go anywhere in the Upper Valley without seeing.
Flashy signs of one sort or another.
That's just when somebody's crossing, they press the button, and the lights flash.
It'd be a continuous flash and then,
Well,
Mhm.
but
Yeah,
that's when it's important.
yeah, yeah, I agree. As much as I hate that kind of progress,
I
Yeah.
did send an email.
I think it would be, the town could use some kind of traffic calming coming in, I don't know I know it's the state that makes the decision, but, things like narrowing the road, to when you're entering a town is like a traffic calming
They just,
thing.
20 or 30 years ago widened the road.
I know, yeah,
Well,
But
those
I
at
will
least
tell you
make
that-
people aware that there's,
yeah, sure, the flashing light, sure, it's
Yeah,
like a.
Dina did reach out and has not heard back to the state to see.
No,
so-
to the family,
the family.
to the family.
when I was a kid, that
That's what it
people
was.
came through town so fast they crashed into Nichols hardware store.
Right.
Into the porch. Lose it on that corner,
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
Before they moved it back, or even still?
even still,
Yeah,
it was.
yeah.
I was just curious, looking at the MS1 report, I couldn't figure out how the total value of the town has gone down. And also, the second question is, how did the elder exemption drop so much?
Okay,
Those are questions to,
okay.
because we've had construction and the market's pretty solid still, so I don't understand how the town would have lost value. Which is, as you think about it, means the tax rate will go up.
Okay. You have an answer?
I do, I have a couple answers.
Okay.
They're not 100% of all the answers, but just from what I've reviewed so far. The total is down because of utilities.
That's right, you said that last week.
The utilities is down, that number, George Sansucci is our utility appraiser, and those numbers went down. And the elderly exemptions have changed because we've had a couple deaths, and because people have changed, some people have changed categories. That
Because
usually
the
makes it
total
go up.
number was the same, so I was just, I gotcha.
Yeah,
When we see the old to new report, we'll be able to see some of those value changes. The
not for the
utilities,
exemptions, but the
But the
old to new will
utilities.
show you the total.
Utilities.
why would
Utilities.
utilities have gone down?
why? It's a good question.
Well, it's a good question for George Sansucci, and I'm happy to have him give a quick explanation as to why, but it has to do with the whole, obviously, over years, there's been lots of lawsuits, lots of
And
abatements,
we're always
lots
the
of,
loser of the lawsuit.
lots of, well, we haven't lost, but anyway.
Negotiated settlements.
It's been about, right, so I think between the DRA and the assessor and the companies, they're trying to be fair. And
Trying to be fair.
who wants to end up in
utilities.
court, that's right, it ends up costing us money, so.
Is
But
Lyme-
it's not a negotiated thing, he doesn't negotiate, that's not what I mean. But I will ask him for a quick paragraph
I was
on
trying to be clever
explanation
and
as
use
to
the
why.
wrong word.
Is Lyme fiber considered
Yep.
electronic?
Well, it's not a utility as far as a utility is claimed, but
They don't
do.
own the poles, so.
Right, they have to pay for their
Right.
conduit or whatever they call it.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, we've been through that over the years, and every time, it seems like whatever number of towns it was, we lost the battle. It's just,
Yeah.
Had more lawyers.
yeah, and then you pay lawyers and still lose the battle. Depends on how you wanna do it.
Okay, let's see. We have 10 minutes to go.
Was there a decision about making the backside of the common one-way for some of the community events, or?
Yes,
You decided
we're going to,
to give it a shot?
we're gonna give it a try. We'll have one way and we will have parking on the common side, of the
Yep.
back of the common, and see how that helps.
I didn't somehow I didn't pick up on I was on Zoom, so,
Okay.
good.
And, hopefully it's successful.
Which way is the one way you wanna
I believe,
Towards the line, I
go? Okay, good.
Good.
think. Maybe not.
I think it's the
Yeah.
other way.
Yeah,
Well, that's too bad.
If we're gonna come out
That's
that
the
way.
way I would like to see it go, but I
Yeah.
think the thought was that,
Sean has it all planned out.
Right.
he has it planned, and the reason
Okay.
I think is because then you pull in on the right side for parking,
Hmm.
and then the through goes
Yeah.
through, which is the opposite of people who are parking now in the front yards, usually come in from Route 10,
I see, yeah.
Well, you shouldn't park on the common side of the road,
going the wrong
going the
way.
other direction.
Yes, yeah, you can
You
park on
could.
either side of the one-way road.
I just said Sean says you shouldn't park.
Well, he knows,
So-
he's just never
He's-
lived in a city and didn't know the rule.
Well, don't forget, every state has a different rule.
That's
Every
correct.
city has a different.
Right.
But I looked up the RSA for him, and you can park
Either way,
on the left
that's
side
what
of.
he is. That's
This,
why.
this is his preference, he also thinks it's safer, unfortunately, to come in that way when you go.
Oh, right.
If you go
Yeah,
out
the only-
towards the line in, you've got more roads conflicting at that intersection.
Yeah, the only reason I like the other way is because people tend to come down Dorchester Road fast and,
Yeah.
you know, they try to race the traffic. You know, they go down the
The hill and then they-
common,
Yeah,
you know, they go down the back of the common to
Ah.
race the traffic
Oh.
the other way.
uh,
Every once in a while, there's a, you know, it's usually during the ski season.
that must be
And, you
exciting.
know, the speed junkies, you know, they're like,
Well, that's good to hear, because all we've heard is the angelic peace of the backside of the common. We didn't know there was drag races going on.
well, every once in a while, and that's the thing, it's only a few, and once, you
Well,
know.
that intersection by
It's
the
the
inn
same
is
three
taking
also.
your life in your hands.
Which
Right.
intersection?
By the inn,
By the Lyme Inn.
coming
Yeah.
out of Market Street, you're like
That's-
creeping
that's-
forward.
Yeah,
It's ridiculous.
So, I mean, actually, when the state people were here,
Somebody
There was-
asked the question.
there was a discussion about, what if we narrowed the entrance there from the
Route 10,
backside
yes.
into Dorchester Road and just had it so there were two lanes? And everybody said, oh, wait, I see, I should slow down here, I should stop and look and all those interesting things. I think that would do a lot. I mean, it's traffic calming. You have to stop there anyway, but if you have to stop and drive through an obviously narrow place, it's gonna make you more thoughtful. And of course, you can place that hole so you have maximum visibility.
That's
So,
what they did on the other end of the common,
Right,
by,
right.
by the bank.
I
Perfect
see.
place for a roundabout.
Oh, please.
There is
No.
not enough room for, we talked about that,
Yeah.
there is not enough room for a roundabout.
There is like the one in Hanover, the north end of Hanover.
Well, the state was very adamant about,
Well,
they
they didn't,
couldn't do a
what did they
roundabout.
say about the,
The one
North
in
end of
Hanover
Hanover.
is
Yeah,
within
Hanover
the
controls
Hanover
that
compact.
themselves, yeah.
Yes,
Yeah, they
they
have,
have no say there.
the state has no say, right?
Narrowing the intersection between the backside of the common and Route 10 by the school would also slow people down
Right.
and not make people so likely to be sucked in as they come up East Thetford and just see that wide open entrance.
Right.
That would be
So-
helpful too.
narrowing actually, so narrowing both ends.
Yeah,
Something to talk about in case you're running short of items
Well,
for your agenda.
This has been great. Or we could just close that road, make it local traffic
Gina
only.
tells us we can't close them.
I know.
That's right.
I remember.
You
Yeah, why
cannot
is that?
just close it.
You
We,
can't just
we
close
tried to,
it.
Well, you
Is
can
it
close it
state?
for short periods of time, if there's a function, you could close the road
Mhm.
without, now you don't have to ask the state's permission for that. But a public road, you can't just close it for no reason.
Right.
You
That's,
can't just say, oh, we've decided we're gonna throw this up, you have to bring it to town meeting, it has to be voted.
and you can't close it for like mud season with the
Right.
skiway, we learned that lesson the hard way.
I see. Yeah, you
You
could if it
you
was
could
a town,
close
if it was
it,
brought
like
to the town.
Dorchester Road, when it
Yeah.
gets really bad, you can put out a sign that says, you know, hazardous, don't, you know, open to residents only, and it's kind of closed, but you're in the middle of fixing it, so
Right,
you can
yeah.
close it, or like Scotty can close a road to do a repair and then reopen it.
But the town could close it with a vote.
The town could vote to close it,
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
There's been some discussion about whether we ought to explore that with respect to
Shoestrap,
shoestrap.
the plastic section.
I went down Shoestrap the other day, and there is a slump caused by the amount of water we had. But the road was in better shape than it was the last time I went.
I
So I
thought
don't
it
think
was,
those
I
things
thought
need
that
to
road
worry.
was closed.
I don't have a
It's
view on it.
it's
I'm
closed to
glad you
gates
went
and
down.
bars, but,
It's still
whoever
passable, yeah.
did it literally needs maintenance. What will kill that road is water coming
Yeah.
out of the ditches and eroding the road. Yes, but as far as, you know, there was saturated ground, there's a ditch here, probably there's a culvert there somewhere that's plugged. The water was going over the road and that caused the slump. But
Right,
beyond that, which is where the problem was before, the road is perfect. It used to be on two different levels. And before Rusty worked on it, he put a culvert in there and the whole thing was about a road down.
you went all the way through,
Going all the way through.
and that,
And I turned around and came
is a
back.
slump or a slough, the whole bank is sloughing.
Yeah, because it was saturated soil, but the saturation looked like it was coming from the ditch on the upper side, which is an ending ditch like this.
Uh-huh,
It probably has a culvert in there that is plugged or closed, or nobody knows where it is.
Hmm.
But water was likely running over the road.
you could see Hughes Brook through the road in a couple of places.
Hmm?
You could see Hughes Brook through the road in a couple of places, if you walk on that side.
Yeah, well, Hughes Brook is right, always has been right there with a very steep
And all the
bank.
fill is pushed up against the trees to hold it back, which is like, that's the,
Yeah, but
that's what's gonna happen, is the
that's been
trees
that
are
way
gonna
for
rot.
For 200 years or more, whenever that road first opened. Road's a corduroy road, it still has logs as a base, which many of our roads in town do. You don't think,
they don't
Old
have that
corduroy.
drop off on the left,
Hmm.
they don't have that drop off.
no.
yeah, but it's also not a town road, it's a class 6 road,
Yeah.
subject to gates and bars,
I
so.
don't drive it.
But, you know, just,
Well, I'm glad you won't, because I wish more people wouldn't.
I would do that.
My, beat the
Concern.
same old drum here, but I have no idea whether it's safe or not. I don't know anything about roads, structural safety on roads. But we've gotten several letters from people alleging that the road is unsafe and is gonna collapse imminently. Ben is
More-
less pessimistic
Well,
about it.
more people have been injured by having that road closed, than have been injured on the road, even though it's been closed. There was, when the bridge was being replaced in Hanover, there was a gentleman that had a heart attack, and they couldn't get him quickly to the hospital, because normally they would have just scooted up over True Strap on Route 10 and out, and he passed away, so.
So I have a suggestion.
I just would like to get someone who's someone who is qualified to tell us.
Well, the trouble with that is they're gonna tell you that, you know, we can't do anything about it anyway.
We
Well,
can't-
no, yeah, we can, we
You
could
guys-
put up a warrant article that says, let's close this road.
Yes, we can do we talked about doing a warrant article, but David, I think in the interim, in the short term, we could have a sign made that says, dangerous road ahead, pass at your, something.
It says all that, I took pictures of all
I
those
know it
signs.
says all that,
If
but-
you can't read, we can't help you.
Well, I share the concern that I think people are just used to going by all the signs and they're not reading them. And maybe an additional sign would make a difference.
We had one put in bright yellow for that reason.
They're all there.
They're all there. My concern about that road is that if somebody goes over that bank,
No one will know.
it's gonna be extremely difficult to get them out of there.
Yep.
On both sides, there's no access to that bottom.
Well, then we should back up out of there.
All the more
Based
reason
on
why it should be closed.
the,
I
you know,
think the
putting
warrant
up, there's no
article
platform
is-
above that, slump section
Yeah.
to base any sort of a crane or anything to pull anybody up out of there.
Well, the slump is, I got pictures of it, but
Yeah,
it's,
it's interesting
it comes
going
in the
down.
road about 3 feet. Plenty of room to pass on the other side. It's not slumped, or doesn't show signs of
Right.
slump.
What's holding it up there?
It's a cut and fill road, so there's.
Could what we did with,
We know.
River Road be done with that?
Could what
It's-
we did with River Road be
Make it
done
into
now?
a trail, I think, was it made into a
Oh.
trail?
The town could vote to do that if somebody brought a.
Rather than just closing it and giving it back to the
There's
abutters.
things that
Well,
need to be
and that, my
jumped.
other comment was there were people walking on it and
Yeah.
using it as a trail.
Oh, yeah, we do, we love it that
Well,
way.
even if it goes back to the landowners, it can still stay open
It could, but they,
if the landowners choose.
Make it
exactly, but
class A
that doesn't make it, that takes it out of local control, really.
But as it is now, as a class 6, you could put a gate there.
No,
No.
yes, yes.
Then you have to
could put a
open,
gate
but you
there,
can't lock
but you cannot lock it.
Right.
People have to, we already
But
had
how-
that,
We had a
and then it
gate.
just gets
So
left
you can't
open.
close it that way.
And
I see.
you're supposed to close it behind you, but people keep leaving it open, and then it,
I just don't want us to be in a situation where someone drives down that road, the road collapses, somebody gets hurt or dies,
right.
and we could have done
Yeah.
something about it. And I don't know if that's a real danger. Ben seems to think that it isn't, or that he
I think
thinks
the
it
danger is just as high that somebody has an emergency on the river road and can't get out.
Yeah, that's a fair point.
I-
I'd just like someone who knows about roads, a structural engineer or someone to go look at it and tell us whether.
You've already been told that it's not safe. Years ago, engineers looked at that road
Right.
and said it is not safe. It needs to be fixed,
There's
or
plenty of
closed, or
passages
made
here
into a
that's
class
solid now.
6. That's what
This
the
is
town
only
chose
in-
to do.
3 feet, maybe.
So 3 feet on an 8-foot road.
As we know,
Well,
class 6
it's
roads.
more than 8
don't
feet,
do it
because
anymore.
Yes, we do know, don't do it anymore.
That's right.
probably a 14 or
When you have
15
no
foot
control
road.
over it, it's
No.
too difficult.
way.
Yeah, well,
way.
I didn't have any trouble getting through there, the
Would you drive your
I
truck?
can order a new
Yeah.
orange sign for each.
But I mean, the road was literally in
Maybe
better
we're
shape.
sick of the yellow one, so let's just say that.
Same picture.
Okay, I heard a door.
Mhm.
Do we have, very good, welcome.
Hey.
We've been waiting for you.
Well,
But we've been having quite exciting discussion,
Glad to hear.
trying to figure out to close the road.
Where would you like me?
right? Well, you could come up front and
Sure.
do it
They're
there.
from northern New Hampshire, where they, that's why I never wrote about
Hello,
litter.
Let's see
how
if
you
we-
doing?
Because of
Yeah, Jim,
litter,
good to see you.
can't read.
And
Let's get,
Here.
Jim, I'm just gonna tell you, I'm videotaping here, so you're fine.
I'll take
It's
it.
just be aware that,
You want them at
Oh,
the.
do you guys?
Yeah, would you like me up here, or?
Out here.
oh, sure, come on up. That makes, thank you, Sue.
That'll make for the best TV
Sure,
for Rich.
yes, that will. Rich would love that. You're now on camera.
The way to get noticed is to put the painting guy up.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, you missed him.
Yeah, he's,
Oh, yeah. You're going to trade places?
so
Fine, but I can
this
see.
is,
And lip read.
joining us, we have town's attorney Joe Driscoll.
Good morning.
Thank you. And we have, for CPCNH, Mr. Herndon.
Herndon, yes.
Herndon,
Thank you.
thank you. And we're here to discuss the Lyme Community Aggregation Committee and possibly joining CPCNH and questions and concerns that we have. And I can,
I have a concern, too many acronyms.
yes.
Too long a title.
Ben Kellum, Dina Cutting, I'm Judy Brotman, David Kahn. We are collectively the administration in this little town. So, and James Graham, I think you know, and Jim Morse, and you know Ms. Quinton, Edie Quinton, Sue McKenzie, and Rich Brown, our loyal followers. Who would like to lead off? David? Yeah.
I started with your questions between you and Joe.
Yeah, Joe and I have spoken, and I've reported back what I got from Joe at that time, that he may have some updates on that. Most of those questions centered on the flexibility of CPCNH with respect to negotiating the specifics of the agreement. The other questions that I had mostly involved trying to get a handle on the cost, both in dollars and in time, to the town associated with being a member of the or taking this next step and actually administering a program like this. Does moving forward mean that the town of Lyme, which has a fairly small and limited and stretched thin group of town employees, is that gonna mean we have to hire somebody new to administer this plan, or is it self-administering as long as we're using CPCNH?
Yeah, I guess, Henry, I think it makes most sense for you to kind of give everybody a 30,000-foot view of CPCNH. I mean, Lyme's signed up to a certain degree, but now is confronted with a community power plan, what that means, et cetera, if you can, especially since there's folks here who may not have all those specifics.
Yeah, I'd be happy to, and I can address a couple of those questions in terms of the agreements, negotiating those agreements, the capacity and costs to the town, and the sequence of events. And perhaps just to start out, so I'm Director of Member Services with Community Power Coalition of New Hampshire, and Lyme is actually a member of the coalition, but you're sort of in an earlier phase where that membership is, there's no cost, there's no commitment to implement any sort of program. It's merely participation in the organization alongside the other 36 cities, towns, and counties across the state through this sort of planning process headed towards a town meeting authorization. So in terms of the sequencing, milestones that have been met are the town has adopted a joint powers agreement and become an equal member of the coalition. And now I understand the committee is developing its plan and bringing that to town meeting, which would authorize the select board to contract for services, but would not require any course of action by the select board. So that's sort of the
And we got a
sequence.
draft plan from our
Yeah.
group of folks and had reviewed it, and that was sort of where, that's the source of some of the questions we had.
Right, and, yeah, that plan, I understand, is from the Community Power Coalition's template, which has been used by a number of other towns and successfully passed legislative and regulatory approval, and things of that nature. In terms of the capacity and the cost question, so really the main purpose of establishing Community Power Coalition of New Hampshire, as a nonprofit, as a joint powers agency, is to alleviate administrative burden from its member towns. So you asked, would the town need to staff up, or is it self-administered? It's not self-administered, but by virtue of your membership with the coalition has shared staff and expert providers to procure electricity, manage a contact center, a call center for customers to call up or email, and do all of the back-end exchange, data exchange and billing with utility companies. So all of the, the operational business practices, those are done through the nonprofit CPCNH on behalf of the member towns to alleviate any need for the town to hire its own staff.
So
Let me
how,
back, I'm sorry, go ahead.
just thinking about a community like this, you have these three folks, or the board, you have Dean here. Obviously, complaints, issues, et cetera, are gonna come to these folks first. How up to speed are they kept by your staff if there are questions or concerns, et cetera?
Yeah, so we have a robust and growing frequently asked questions on the website, communitypowernh.gov. And we try to make sure all the select boards, all the town offices are aware, we do make sure they're aware. If you get inquiries from customers, please relay those to our customer service line, 1-866-603-POWER. And then we've got the website and email addresses as well. POWR is the final forward. So anyway, you should not, as a town, be responsible in any way for fielding customer service inquiries. You should direct those to the contact center where folks are, well scripted on all the frequently asked questions. And probably we wanna have the committees familiar with the common questions, and there's a role of ensuring a good communication flow between the coalition and the towns, just as there are updates and things are occurring. So for example, cost reporting, we are required under our joint powers agreement and under our service contracts to do monthly cost reporting. The first programs have only been up and running since May, so we're early on. We just hired our accountant this month. But anyway, come September, perhaps October at the latest, we'll have the initial of the monthly cost reports sort of stood up and disseminated. So there will be that's all public documentation, but there will be a very clear baseline from the towns that are currently providing service of monthly cost reporting. How many, it's more than cost, but it's how many customers are in the program, how many have opted in and opted out, what are the different products that the customers have chosen, not, identifying any customers, but just aggregate numbers. What is the total cost associated with serving the load in the different towns? And what are the revenues, or what are the net revenues? How much of the collective reserve fund is associated with the participating town? So all that cost reporting will be standardized and sort of automated on a monthly basis in the next couple of months.
So to circle back to the aggregation plan, we got a draft, and that I sort of figured it was probably based on a template that you guys had prepared. One of the questions that I had, that we had as a select board, was how much flexibility there is in this plan itself. From, on one end, there were just technical errors, like the plan that we got still in a couple places referred to the town administrator, which we don't have. On the other end, we had a couple of people commenting, oh, I don't like this opt-out way of structuring this, could we do it as an opt-in structure? So, given that it's a CPCNH template, one of our questions was how much could we, how willing is CPCNH to entertain alterations to this template in terms of creating a final plan, and does that create additional regulatory problems or other issues that we should understand before we propose changes?
Yeah, that's a great question, and yes, CPCNH is flexible and encourages towns to customize those plans, and CPCNH also conducts a technical review of those plans to ensure that any modifications don't inadvertently contradict the law and regulation. So we do the technical review to make sure the adjustments aren't gonna get you into trouble with regulators. In terms of the opt-in, opt-out, none of our current members have, or I guess backing up, the legislation, RSA 53E, allows for either opt-out programs or opt-in programs. New Hampshire was actually the first state in the country to have a community power law, because back in 1995 or 1996, put it on the books, but did not allow for the opt-out provision, only allowed for opt-in programs. And so the law lay dormant for 25 years, because essentially the opt-in program defeats the economy of scale, and you don't get broad-based participation, and it sort of defeats the purpose of the program. So we don't encourage any members to pursue an opt-in, but technically under the legislation that is allowable. In terms of customization though, certainly, I mean, there are goals and objectives in other areas that are, towns can certainly be creative in customizing.
One of the things that I wanted to understand also better was the way the draft plan that we got is structured. It appears that you don't move, the town wouldn't move forward unless the initial cost of electrical power is less than Eversource. But I wanted to understand, is that a perpetual guarantee, or is that only an initial state that has to be met? And is there any protection against, if it's just an initial state, is there a concern, or is there any protection against the situation in which CPCNH's power ends up being a lot more expensive than other sources for some period of time? What are towns' options in that setting, or is that never gonna happen?
So it's not a perpetual guarantee. And I'll talk a little bit about why we have a high degree of confidence that year over year, on average, we will be able to outprice the utilities. It's because of the way their regulated approach to buying power inflates their costs, where they have to buy twice a year at set fixed times, and the coalition is flexible and can purchase power in the market throughout the year and maintain a diverse portfolio of contracts. So we have laddered, managed portfolio of contracts. The utilities have to buy twice a year, which is a large part of our competitive advantage, why we can deliver cost savings. And that's not to say, did you wanna?
I'm just curious, it's just curious, why would they be saddled with that limitation?
We'd have to perhaps dig into the history of restructuring and monopoly ownership of the generation fleets, and then deregulation, where we carved off the power plants from Eversource or PSNH control and made the marketplace. And then sort of the purpose was all customers will go out and shop for the power in the competitive market, and that will lower costs, which worked very well for the large energy users. The vast majority of large energy users are shopping in that market for a supplier getting lower costs than like the option of last resort Eversource default supply. It didn't work so well with the residential customers who have very small loads or are less sophisticated in that space, and that's really the purpose of community power, is expand those benefits that all the large customers got to the general residential class. But it's a fair point in terms of the establishment of community power perhaps has this question: why do we have such a stringent approach to utility procurement?
I mean, they'll get competed out of existence if.
Well, it's not their business model, and they're just an administrator that when the regulators say so, they put out an RFP, they pick the cheapest option for a 6-month period, and they don't make any profit,
So they don't really care.
they don't really care. And it's sort of generally a fairly stable way to do things, if not the most cost-efficient way. So that's one reason why we can, but I'm trying to remember, you had other aspects to your question. What protects the customers in the town?
Yeah, if you got into a situation where, for whatever reason, Eversource is, 10% lower for 6 months or something, we're just stuck in that situation, or?
Well, so any individual customer is not stuck. Any customer can leave at any time on a monthly billing cycle, meter reading basis, so that's what protects the customer. In the town, you're not ever liable for any of the costs. There are termination provisions in the cost sharing agreement and the member service contract. And so that's maybe a part of the answer to your question. If you really were unhappy, then there are options to terminate.
Yeah.
Yep, it is a 36-month rolling term of service. It is not a 36-month term of a rate, because the coalition can adjust its rates every 6 months when the utilities adjust rates. we also can adjust our rates. That's not to say we're buying power on those 6-month intervals, but we are adjusting the rate to maintain a discount to the utility when they change rates.
So how does it work? One of the things I thought I understood from reading through this plan was that there will be long-term, sort of project-level costs that are incurred by CPCNH to do all sorts of things, develop, I don't know.
Generation asset.
Yeah, I mean, sort of capital assets.
Right.
And that those costs are going to be paid on a pro rata basis by the customers, by the people who buy electricity. So if CPCNH has gone out and incurred costs like that and have been capitalized and are being paid by customers, if a town then says, we've decided we don't like this, we're out of here. What happens? Does those customers' share of those costs just get reallocated to the remaining customers, or do the customers who are no longer part of CPCNH, are they still on the hook for their share of the capital costs that were incurred while they were members?
Good questions. So CPCNH will not unilaterally implement a project, which would be like a capital asset. But we do allow for members to, through CPCNH, voluntarily participate in project contracts. So it could be that maybe Lyme and Hanover wanna sign a 10-year contract to put a solar array here and take the power from it. Your customers would reap the benefits of that, and they would pay the cost of that project, and those would not, maybe Lebanon's not participating. Those costs would not flow to Lebanon customers, those customers in Lebanon would not receive any of the benefits. So, to the first part, the project is voluntary, and only members that elect to enter into project contracts will participate in that.
Okay.
And then in terms of what happens if there's a withdrawal, how do you reallocate? So part of the termination provision, whether it's, let's say a project's aside, if you're taking service and you elect to terminate, what the coalition will do will notify the town of your minimum waiting period, after which point in time, no costs from your obligations for power supply would be shifted onto other members and other towns. And that could be, and right now we only have contracts that run out about 12 months, so that could be 12 months, it could be less, depending on the market, and we'd say, hey, your waiting period is 12 months, and anyone can opt out during that time, whatever, but after that period of time, Lyme's program with membership would terminate, you would withdraw, dissolve the program, and the portion of the reserves associated with the town of Lyme would be returned to the town of Lyme. That's one option. There's a second option, which is early termination, and essentially you forfeit your portion of the reserves to cover the costs that could be shifted to other towns.
I see.
The final detail I wanna mention here is, I'm speaking of this in terms of, it may be that we have purchased power on your behalf, and if you terminate, that power could, the cost of that power could be shifted to other members. The inverse could be true. That could be an asset that could be a liability for the coalition. It could also be an asset, so that would actually shorten your waiting period. I think it's unlikely the town would be terminating in such an environment, but I do want to be clear that it's a not just a cost question, it's a cost and benefit
Yeah.
question.
I just had a question about the cost sharing agreement. That's a 36-month agreement, is that what you're saying? That the,
It's a rolling 36-month term.
okay.
And that's actually in the member services contract, which is sort of the service contract attached to the cost sharing agreement.
Right, yeah, because we haven't seen that yet, so it's just, yeah, understanding that is helpful.
And I'd be happy to, that's on the website, on the cbcnh.org/about, and I'd also be happy to share a version, because, depending on the pace Lyme wants to move at, the coalition, there are many members, we're working on categorizing them. There's sort of 4 categories. There's join, which is every town in the state that has yet to join the coalition. There's plan, which is Lyme, which is the pre-town meeting group. So there's about a dozen coalition members that are in the plan group. And that group, if you approve at town meeting this coming year, if you were looking to bring the program online fairly quickly thereafter, it could be as soon as June, but that would mean that in the March, April timeframe, this board would have to adopt the cost sharing agreement and the member service contract.
Henry, the select board can't do anything until the town votes to enter into this power agreement. Is the reverse true? In other words, can the select board all by themselves terminate that, or is that also a town decision?
That is written in the template plan, in the termination language, and forgive me if I don't recall off the top of my head, but either the
Select board.
the template gives the authority to terminate to the select
I
board.
think so, yeah.
And
That
this-
was, I think, my answer to your questions. I think I looked that up.
And because this question has come up and towns have chosen to leave the authority to terminate the program with the town meeting.
Oh, no, it says, in describing in the EAP, the program can be terminated at the approval of voters at a regular or special town meeting. And then, but would have to satisfy contractual agreements,
Okay.
you know, up to that point, so. So, yeah, it would take a vote of the town to completely terminate.
And I think I meant vice versa then, where that is an area where towns have actually taken.
Change
Oh,
the
to
language.
change the language to
Change
make
the
the,
language.
And Joe and I can check this, but I do not believe that there is a statutory requirement one way or the other in terms of termination.
okay, yeah, we'd have to look at the RSA. for that.
So putting it in the hands of the select board is obviously less democratic and less, you know, people don't get their say. On the other hand, it would enable the town to react more quickly in the event that there was some problem
That's true.
or reason why we wanted to get out, you know. Depending on the timing of that kind of a situation, you could be almost a year away from being able to have a decision if it's left to town meeting. Or is there some
You
provision
can
for
do a
calling a
special-
special town
you can
meeting?
do a
You
special
can,
town
you
meeting.
can call a special
So
town
if
meeting.
there's something urgent enough, I
You're
guess.
right.
Yeah, there would have to be some kind of, I think it's a financial consideration that is looming. You can't just go to court and say, we've decided we wanna have a special town meeting.
Well, so there, on special town meetings, you need court approval when it's a financial related issue. You can hold a special town meeting when there's no financial issue and you do not need court approval.
Oh, so that makes
But-
it harder.
But, yeah, but I wouldn't think that the select board would consider, terminating, dropping out, unless there was a
Yeah,
financial issue.
exactly. So
I mean, you
that,
wouldn't
then you
just
have to go
say-
to court.
You know, we're not crazy about
How
the
long
guy
does
who
that take?
brings the.
That's actually a very quick process, I put that in air quotes, because there's a variety of things this board would need to do along the way, public hearings, et cetera, budget hearings, all that associated with it. The court process runs right in parallel with it and is concluded typically before your earliest scheduling of the special town meeting would be. It's not it doesn't block that process at all. I just did one a couple weeks ago, we had an order by the time I was back sitting at my desk.
So start to finish, we get into a situation where we're in this thing, we need to get out of it. We have to go to court, we have to, you know, schedule such a special town meeting. How long is that? Is it a month? Is it
You're
3 months?
typically about, I'd say 60 days, builds in a little bit of a cushion, and during that same 60 days, you're dealing with the court aspect.
Okay, so then the delta between having the select board be able to do it and having it be something that the town would vote on would be
Like 60 days.
2 months.
2 to 3 probably.
Probably
But
more,
we
yeah.
should confirm that there isn't a statutory limitation to
Yeah, I
letting
agree
the
with
select
that,
board
too.
do it.
But on there, there's no history of towns trying to get out of this thing.
Not as of yet,
No.
no.
Still pretty good.
Brand new.
What would be the reason one would wanna suddenly get out of this agreement?
Not saving money.
Yeah,
We need to have an exit strategy, that's the
Yeah,
reason.
you know, just from a lawyer's point of view, I always think, I don't know what could happen, but maybe the thing isn't working, maybe there's not, provision of power isn't reliable, maybe their costs have gone up through the roof and, or
Yeah.
something just unforeseen, we haven't thought of it yet, but it's probably unlikely, but,
So,
can you explain to us why, going back to the opt-in and opt-out, the draft plan that our group put together for us treats Eversource customers differently than it treats New Hampshire electric cooperative people. The cooperative people are opt-in, the Eversource people are opt-out.
Right.
Can you explain why the delta or why that difference in treatment?
Yep, I actually received marching orders last week to update our template to make them the same, to treat them both as
Okay.
opt-out. And so, and the reason it was different previously is because when the first 12 towns came online, Hanover, Hanover, Plainfield, Enfield all have co-op. And co-op's rates were lower than coalition rates. And we didn't wanna enroll any customers into a higher rate than what they were already getting in their utility. Also, there's the cost, that's the cost argument for why they were opt-in, not opt-out. There's also sort of a secondary argument, I'll say, it's a governance argument. The co-op's already democratically governed nonprofit power company. However, right now, the coalition's rates are better than the co-op's rates. So we are looking at transitioning the template to opt out for all customers regardless of their utility. This is something that an individual town would certainly be encouraged to customize if they had strong feelings one way or the other as well. I think there's two schools of thought. There's, well, we should treat every customer exactly the same regardless, and there's maybe a school of thought that, well, the co-op customers are different, let's treat them differently.
That was the question, can you treat co-op customers one way and Eversource customers another way?
Yeah.
Opt-out
Yes.
versus opt-in.
Well, we have done that, yes.
That's what the current plan contemplates. Or the draft plan that that our
Yeah.
committee prepared for us.
So a couple questions that I have, kind of hitting on some topics of discussion. One sort of more basic, as David brought up, there is no town administrator here. Are there aspects of the agreement that really need to be retrofitted? I mean, a town administrator has certain statutory abilities that, helps a select board because they're managing the day-to-day. So is there stuff we need to be mindful of in the fact that they don't have this, that we would need to modify in this agreement, or is that just sort of a term that was thrown around in there that we can move past?
I'd say it's the latter, and it's more of a question of CPCNH updating its template to be more accessible,
Okay.
and less so that there is a specific requirement, because I think the town administrator language is maybe in the attachment on data protection and privacy, which is, and maybe,
No, it's up front.
Is it up
And
front?
then
Yeah,
it's
there-
really,
there's a few.
for us, it's just a replace to like the select board.
Right,
Because
exactly.
they're the.
Select
Well,
board or
there's-
board
yeah.
administrator.
Yeah, there's authorization by the select board to give the town administrator certain powers.
Okay.
So that was where I was.
I'm just called something different, that's the confusion here.
The second thing I was curious about, and this is, pull out your crystal ball kind of question, so I apologize. I mean, you were speaking about the flexibility you have versus a general power company. They're committed to purchasing cycles per year, et cetera. Is there any sort of issues on the horizon that will start to eat away at your flexibility? I mean, if you're able to carry portfolios as you are now, but they say, well, you're too big, or what happens, it becomes legislated such that you're more and more confined. Is there forecasting for that, or is there, is that just gonna have to be this is new, everybody takes on that risk? How is the town supposed to confront that?
so, community power and the coalition are not regulated by the Public Utility Commission, other than in the administrative rules that govern how we exchange data and information with utilities and certain sort of launch sequence things. Once they're up and running, they have no say in how we procure power, just as any other competitive entity that's not a monopoly investor-owned utility. They don't have a say in that. And I would say, so there is, regulatory and legislative risk are real things, and the coalition is very mindful of those, substantive change to law and regulation could materially negatively impact the coalition's business model. Conversely, there are currently, you could call them inefficiencies, you call them regulatory barriers, you call them flaws in the legislative and regulatory construct that prevent activities by community power that would further lower cost. So whether that's sourcing power from local generators as an offset to interstate transmission or wholesale energy market costs. We can do that now, but with certain legislative regulatory fixes, that could be much more cost effective. There's great benefit from more efficient energy management, demand management. There's basically a big spectrum of innovative potential in terms of distributed energy storage, customers with rooftop solar putting power back onto the grid, time of use rates, so electric vehicles only charge during the off-peak hours. There's this spectrum of things that these can all more so lower the cost for customers and increase the benefit. So it's, this is sort of a long-winded way of answering your question, but regulatory and legislative advocacy are a part of what the coalition does. We're currently hiring for a regulatory legislative affairs director. We have a committee closely monitoring this, so the coalition will be involved in the legislative process, and a part of its mission is to empower the collective membership to have a stronger voice in that process, to ensure there aren't detrimental policies and to move forward with more beneficial policies.
Yeah, just like,
One of the things that I think our committee was slightly confused about in terms of the town administrator is when you go on the town website and you look up Dina, she's called the town administrator. So I think what we were thinking is, okay, we can leave the term there, we just wanna make sure she doesn't have any extra work.
Well,
Which is why I got in touch with Enfield and Plainfield to find out, how they were handling it. So I'm still a little confused to why you don't have a town administrator.
we don't. It's a
That's
separate form of government, which we do not have.
It's like a mayor.
And Dina, no, it's the other way
that's
around.
That's a town manager.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
There's no, yeah.
Dina very capably administers this town, but we do not have a town administrative form of government. And we should have probably clarified board administrator or just administrator a few years ago when some of her job description was upgraded. We apologize for any confusion, but she's the gal.
And I
She's
think
it.
that's definitely something, our office
We
can
could
be really
easily.
spearheading, is just making sure there's no references in here to,
Any one person.
potholes or something that, oh, that actually didn't end up in somebody's bucket. So, that's more about our review,
I
again,
think we
this was a
can do
template
that, right.
use, so.
Now, along those lines, I had a sort of technical question. Throughout this draft electric aggregation plan, the document refers to initial caps, Lyme Community Power as an entity. What is that? Is it a separate corporation that gets formed? Is it a town committee? Is it?
It is not a legal entity. It is a program, and it is because the RSA explicitly makes the term community power or Lyme, the name of a municipality, community power, reserves that as a trademark name for the sole use of the town of Lyme. So nobody else can use the term Lyme Community Power. So it's the name of your program, and then your program will be administered by some other company or legal entity, CPC&H or somebody else.
So it's just a description of the program
It's
itself,
the
and
name of the
we should
program.
we should define that term somewhere to mean that.
Yeah, and that could be another improvement to the template perhaps, because this question has come up previously.
So not to, again, make you pull out a crystal ball here, but obviously what the path is, they adopt the plan, you move forward, now you're talking about energy procurement, right, for the customers. Can you kind of break down what a timeline is for that? I mean, at one moment you could say, oh, wow, we absolutely should hop on this right now because the rates are, whatever cheaper, but if it takes 6 months to cycle this all through to get up and running, now all of a sudden, it's a negative to the consumer, how do you deal with it? Or do you lock in a rate in the beginning? How does that work?
So, right now, our rate cycle mirrors the utility rate cycle. Again, we're not procuring when they procure, but we're setting rates when they when they set rates. So in December, the very end of December, we will announce the February through July rates. Right now, Lyme has the benefit of being able to look at our first rate period, our second rate period, and you'll have our third rate period, which will be announced in December. So you have those three benchmarks. And then in terms of timing, so the town, if it wanted to bring it online quickly, could bring it online in June, which would have June and July as the final 2 months of that rate period, and then rates would reset in August. And those would be announced 30 days in advance. That's one option. So you would know at 2 months of rate comparison before, when you launch. Another option would be waiting until knowing what the August through January rates are, and then launching at some point in time during the early end of that August through January rate period. Does that answer your question?
Well, when you, with that launch period, I mean, what does it take time-wise to launch?
Right. Great question. So there's a series of things, and I have my checklists for getting up to town meeting, but I don't have my checklist for that after, but it is, there is a sequence of things. The major milestone is the select board vote to approve the cost sharing agreement and the member services contract, executing those contracts and us counter signing those, and legal review of all of that. So that's the major milestone. There are also things that you don't have to do as a town, but we have to do as your service provider. We have to obtain the mailing information, customer names, addresses, account numbers. We have to obtain anonymized customer usage information. There will be so maybe I'll try to bucket these. 1, contracts. 2, CPC&H obtains data and mailing information. 3, there's a risk management committee meeting. We call it the go, no-go meeting. This is the meeting where our risk management committee will come together, invite Lyme and all the other new members to authorize the first purchases of power on behalf of the towns. This is the point in time where Lyme can walk away up until they've approved us to buy power at that risk management meeting. So that's the third thing. And then we actually have to buy the power, and then it's just the details of printing and mailing notifications. So that's another key milestone. Again, we do that on your behalf. You have to order them a couple weeks in advance, and you cannot enroll any customers until 30 days after the mail has dropped. So I'm gonna say this all out to you now, and then we're gonna give you this in a very clear written document as follow-up, because I know it's hard there's a number of things we have to keep track of. And there's one more I think I wanted to mention. So the final one is, the utility must be notified either 45 days in advance or 90 days in advance. And it depends on what month you're launching in. And this is an aspect of the rules, and we can get esoteric with the regulatory rules, but if the program is coming online in August or September, you would have to give 90 days advance notice. Otherwise, it would be 45 days. And again, the coalition handles all of this complexity for you. We'll work with you to figure out when do you wanna come online, and then we'll handle all of that.
So like, once the town voted on it, you could be notifying the utilities for the 45-day thing if, you know, and then we can step forward through the contracting and other stuff.
We would not issue notice until after contracts are executed.
I see, okay, good to know. So one other question in that process was, when you get the data from the utilities, you know, the private information, the mailing, that has to actually come through the town, right?
No.
No, it doesn't?
No,
Okay.
so again, the first towns, we were writing templates, giving them all to the towns were sending them to the utilities were sending us data. We are now centralizing for efficiency's sake, where towns are saying, hey, utilities, coalition can request data on our behalf, and we just are the central hub
Okay.
of all
So
of that.
that is
That's
better.
better.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
better, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So, this electrical aggregation plan, this draft that we saw, doesn't include sort of the nitty-gritty. And I would say that within the town of Lyme, you have a group of people who would look at this and say, I just want the cheapest power you can get me. If it's cheaper to give me power by burning tires, I'm good with that. And then on the other end of the spectrum, you have people who say, I don't care what it costs, I want all of my power to meet certain ecological or environmental criteria, and that's what I'm about. And so it looked to me like there are, or at least from what I've read, there are towns have provided in the sort of nitty-gritty with the actual consumers, various packages that they could sign up for that sort of split that baby in different ways. Where does that get, where are those specific options sort of hashed out and defined, and when does that get set, and how does that all work?
Yeah, so that's in the service agreement, and there are options, we have lots of options, always, better or worse. And either the select board can retain the authority to set your rate options. And Hanover and Plainfield said, we want everyone to get opted into 33% green power, 10% more green power, and they'll pay a little premium for that. Whereas Lebanon said, everyone's gonna get the minimum cost, minimum renewable energy power. Most towns have everyone enrolled in the minimum cost, minimum
And
renewable.
that's just the default.
That's the default, and all of the towns so far have offered the three options in addition to that. Either 33%, 50%, 100% green, clean power, or if you're Hanover, you can opt down to the 23% option.
Get it cheaper.
Right. So this select board can retain the authority to make those decisions. We also have,
Wait, when you say the select board can have authority to make that decision, you're just talking about the default.
the
right?
default, you choose
Because
what you
individual customers are always gonna
That's
have the
right.
ability to move.
But you choose, I mean, you technically could choose not to offer other options. You could just choose a default and not offer the other three options. But all the towns so far have chosen a default and chosen to offer the three options.
And those options are preset by CPCNH, so there's just how many are there?
Right now, there's Granite Basic, Granite Basic, which is minimum renewables, Granite Plus, which is 10% more, and then Clean 50, Clean 100. And that menu will evolve over time as, build up reserves, become established, and begin to perhaps develop projects.
So a couple follow-ups on
And-
that.
And 23% is what Eversource is required to provide, so that's the common base.
In accordance
Yes.
with the PUC.
That's right, and that
Yeah.
goes up to 24% next year and 25% the next year, and then it's done.
So I can't get my no renewable.
No, you can't burn
No.
tires.
Tire options, no.
I know, but there's one more
Too
detail
late,
here.
Yeah.
too late.
In the service agreement, there is a section about referring to an authorized officer. This is an individual the select board can delegate certain authorities to. For example, we have that go, no-go risk management meeting. Someone needs to show up to that meeting on behalf of the town, and that person at the meeting could say, you know what, we're not gonna move forward. So there's an individual who you could give that authority to. Additionally, we give you the option of saying one individual has the authority to pick our default and optional rate products. Most towns are and that was a useful flexibility when we were launching and we had to make decisions very quickly. Many towns are looking at that right now, towns that are maybe similar to Lyme, and saying, I think it's better for the select board to keep the authority of setting the default rate products as opposed to giving it to one person.
So a variety of follow-up questions to what you just said.
Okay.
What you just talked about with that authorized representative, is that something that is legislated, or is that something that, you guys say, hey, it may make sense for you to do this, and then this board would kind of work through what they'd wanna authorize that person to do? You kind of spoke about it as this or that, so I didn't know if that was.
There's the section in the agreement has an authorized officer and there's three things. Are they allowed to do these three things, yes or no?
Okay.
One, are they
That's
allowed
not
to
really
set default and optional rate products?
Okay.
Two, are they allowed to elect to delay commencing procurement? Show up at that meeting and say, no, we're not gonna go forward. And then the third is set discretionary reserve adders. So that's that's a big authority, and this is sometimes controversial, but we have provided for in our policy that a member may apply a discretionary reserve adder. We're charging 10.9 cents a kilowatt hour. A town may elect to charge 0.1 cent more for 11 cents a kilowatt hour to accrue a reserve fund for the sole use of that town, sole discretionary use of that town. So that's one of, do you wanna give this person the authority to set that?
Is point two colloquially referred to as the go, no go?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
I got a question. There's a zillion variables here. What are you gonna, when the bill comes to me, and I've chosen a plan and all this stuff out here, am I gonna see on that bill what co-op is charging versus what I'm getting billed for on the individual bill?
On the bill, you will only see the supply rate from your supplier, whether it's the co-op, you'll see the co-op power, or if it's the coalition, you'll see Granite Basic or Community Power. You won't see both. Our website shows these in comparison to one another.
The reason is that, you know, you're overloading the customer with complexity.
There's a possibility for creating a more complex choice environment, but it doesn't have to be that way.
Well, you know, if you, every bill came in, you said, oh geez, I saved this much bracket or what, minus or whatever. You would be making a judgment every month on what your choice was and whether you should adjust your choice each time.
And we don't have much control over what gets printed on the bill, because the bill is still coming from the co-op or Eversource. We actually have very little amount of control. We can put our customer service line and our address and our price. We can't put, we probably would wanna put the savings if we could. On our website, we do have this. We have a table that says, here's what Eversource charges, here's the average cost per month at that rate. Here's what we charge, here's the average cost per month, and then here's what you save over a 6-month period as the customer. So we do wanna communicate that, we can't put it on the bill though.
So I got two quick follow-ups for you. You were talking about the different various plans, and then there's some communities would have the power to not offer these plans, and is there any benefit to that? I mean, is it like, hey, you get this cheaper if you don't offer these plans, or something? I mean, is there?
There's, not necessarily, no.
And then, do you guys have a example, warrant article?
Yes.
Okay, is that on your website, or is that?
I can send you that,
Yeah.
or I'm not sure if the committee has it yet, but I can send that around.
Is it the kind of article that's voted in the town meeting, or is it printed on the warrant and voted the way that zoning amendments are?
It should just be something that's read in the normal thing, not one of the first couple where you're ballot voting or.
Like funding for the grader?
Yeah.
Henry, I have a question, to go back to Ben's question. Is my assumption that the committee, the Lyme Electric Aggregation Committee, would have access to the emails for the customers that have chosen CPCNH? And that actually could be a role we play. In other words, every month, we could take what's on your website so that people don't have to search for it, and send those Lyme residents an email saying the same information that's on the website, but it lands in their inbox, which makes it perhaps less complex for them. I don't know.
That's a good question that I don't have a good answer for yet, and I don't think that the coalition does. We do obtain email addresses for the customers that provide that to the utility. The utility has the customer's email address. When they share the customer information with us, we have that. We have, we're subject to strict confidentiality and data protection requirements. But we have this has come up before, where towns want to better communicate with their customers, with their citizens. So the coalition hasn't necessarily addressed how we might be able to solve for this, but it's a good question.
We could also, because it seems to me that the committee's role, once this passes and the cost-sharing agreements and the membership contract and we're launched, is really to make it as easy as possible for people in Lyme to make the decisions that Ben was just talking about. So, even if we had to say at the launch meeting, if you want us to send you a copy of what's on the CPCNH website every month so you can see what you're saving and adjust
Right.
that way.
You have to obtain customer permission, essentially.
Right,
They
okay.
would,
Sorry.
they would with an email.
Right.
Or we could just put every month on the listserv.
There you go.
Yeah,
CPC&H customers saved this much, maybe you wanna join too.
Well, you got three different categories.
Yeah.
Depending on what you
As,
chose.
as somebody who is married to the listserv manager, getting people's emails and dealing with mailings to lists like that is a nightmare. And you wind up in spam and people blocked, so I would encourage, it sounds like a great idea, but it would probably be something for CPCNH to manage as a live list of email addresses that are updated, rather than us harvesting them and doing something with them, because
Yeah, that can be done too with an honest broker, so that the committee don't have any of the personally identifiable information, like
right.
first name dot last name at x.com, so that it's still anonymous.
Right.
But there would be a way to find the balance.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay,
I like it as an idea, though.
okay. Are you somewhat satisfied?
I think so, yeah.
Ben wants it much more simple.
So we need to tighten up our draft a little bit, and then we can, start talking about doing a public hearing.
And Joe, you're feeling that some of the questions that we had and then that you had have been,
Yeah, I think it's been
Touched
good.
on.
I think, the process has been laid out. I think there's a bit of different information that people had, so the questions have been answered. I mean, if the committee's gonna go back and try to revise the draft they have, I can work on a couple of things that Henry and I spoke about. When you guys are done with that, get it back to the select board, they can get it to me just sort of for the legal review, make sure we don't have any issues there, and then the board should be up and running to move it in the direction it wants to.
Tina,
If that
did you
makes
have
sense.
any questions that you wanted to share at this time? You have access to both these people. Okay.
You probably don't have any experience with this, but in the event that a town were to decide that it didn't wanna continue, signed up and then decides, oh, this isn't working for us, we wanna stop, what happens with the individual customers and their electrical service? Do they just automatically get picked back up by whoever would be their default, or,
Yes.
Big loss of power.
One tire in the middle from the state.
Your
Could you-
select board took away all your power.
Could you guys give us some kind of timeline for how fast we can get this done? Because we have to have at least 2 public hearings before we can take it to the town. And we're sort of crowding up against that season, as it were. So I don't know what you,
Part of it has to do with our completing our draft that we give.
yeah, after that, would it have to be done by you guys in a meeting then? Or could you
Public
provisionally,
hearing would be done,
could you provisionally approve what exists now and let us do minor edits?
I would not be comfortable with that. Can't speak for
I
David
get-
and Ben.
If I can make a suggestion, we might be able to have a public hearing. Would this be true? We could have a public hearing without a completed document as if the issue is like getting enough public hearings before town
We
meeting.
meet every 2 weeks. You
Yeah.
can get a public hearing scheduled pretty quickly.
Yeah, okay.
I don't think that that's an issue. I think having the ducks in the row first is probably much more efficacious.
yeah, I don't know if there's a provision, and it seems to me that you could have a public hearing to just gather public input. And part of what you're doing in producing this draft is making some of the decisions about how this thing, what this program is gonna look like. You might wanna actually gather some input from people as part of the drafting project explicitly before you have a final draft, so that you can incorporate.
Well, and David, don't forget, they had a meeting, and you can have a meeting anytime.
Right,
That's
public
different
meeting.
than a public
Information
hearing.
Hearing, yeah.
Right.
So for information gathering.
I don't know, but if Joe says that, you can have a hearing without having a draft plan
I mean,
finalized.
All I'm seeing from the statute is that you'll solicit public input in the planning process and hold public hearings.
Okay, so
So
that
not-
could be just what you're
You-
saying.
I'm not
Yeah.
necessarily seeing a
Yeah.
committee,
Yeah.
unless you.
Oh, I thought we
CPCNH
had.
committee is,
I don't think this
is in the
is
process of drafting
final.
a
No.
power
And the point
application
is actually
plan.
that it's
We
not
wanna get public
necessarily
input
the-
onto in this and answer
There'll be a
questions and
public
get,
hearing.
so we have a hearing and boom,
Okay,
takes care of one
Probably
of
not
them.
controversial, so we had a public hearing today.
right. I just happened to be here.
Yes, right. I think we
Okay.
should wrap up if everyone is comfortable with that. We as a board have a couple more things on our agenda, but we're really thankful very much to have both of you folks come and.
Yeah, this was, yeah, good to meet you all.
Fantastically helpful.
Okay, yeah, I'm
very
so
much,
glad. Yeah,
very much.
great questions.
And,
One more thing I'll just note, I believe perhaps a couple of you may have been on an email I sent last Friday about a workshop.
Yes.
September
That's
12th.
not
So that's with the cohort of towns in this phase. And I'll be virtual and in person, and hope to see you there.
I was wondering how broad that was. Is anybody on the committee?
Yeah,
Any-
yep, open invitation to
Okay,
anyone.
Open invitation. All right, I can share it back out.
That'd be great.
Yeah.
great,
Thank
thank you all very much.
Thank you.
You.
Thanks for
A
the
lot of work
questions.
has gone into getting this far.